Welcome back to NextDev FM. My name is Ryan Vogel, and I'm joined by my co-host here.
Dan Guswin.
And we've got a very special guest today. But before we get to that, Dan, I was pushing some code on the NextDev repository because we're trying to get that new UI update going.
Yeah.
And I saw something weird. It was actually the logo right here. That kept popping up all over my code review. Did you like rename your account like Code Rabbit or something like that?
Oh yeah, that's actually that really, really cool thing. It doesn't have anything to do with your account. It's essentially an AI that reviews your code for you. And it has actually saved my ass a few times before with the environment variables that I almost leaked. So you should really listen to what this thing has to say.
Oh wow. Well, that's really good, but I mean my open source repository, I mean I'm not generating any money, so like I don't want it to be like super expensive or anything like that. How much is this going to cost me, man?
Well, luckily for you, it is free on open source repository. So all you have to do is just enable it.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Thank you so much to CodeRabbit for sponsoring all NextDev lives. Check them out at devlink.run/CodeRabbit and start doing PRs and code reviews just better. All right, we are going to bring forward our guest, Matt Palmer. There we go. Let's get that all rearranged. Matt is a head of DevRel or head of developer relations or shenanigans at Replit. Matt, how you doing?
Doing super well. Great to be here. Thank you both for having me.
Awesome. Super excited to have you. Matt, I ran into you in a SF at a party the other day, and I'm like, dude, you're so awesome. We must get you in the basket. And now you're here. It was so quickly. I'm just happy. But anyway, let's get to the juicy part, which is who you are, what do you do? Just give us a 2-minute intro so that people know who they're looking at.
Absolutely happy to. Yeah, thanks for the kind words there, Dan. I'm Matt, head of DevRel at Replit. Yeah, living in SF, going to parties, doing the thing. Mission is to make coding, make building with AI accessible to everybody. That's what I've been up to for the past almost 2 years now.
Yeah, and how'd you get into developer relations?
Yeah, man, I feel like it was one of those things that kind of found me. I didn't really seek it out. I got into my career through in tech through data. So started out first graduated school in finance, moved into data analytics. That was probably the hardest thing, one of the harder things I've done in my life. Just kind of like saying, hey, I'm working in financial consulting. I want to be doing SQL and Python, and I'm just going to teach myself how to do those things. So I like bought a giant Python textbook, taught myself SQL, and then just applied to like a ton of jobs. Shout out to like my first manager, Brent, who like totally took a chance on me and said, hey, we're gonna bring this guy who doesn't really know what he's doing. Kind of learned how to be a data analyst, who was a data analyst at All Trails, as a matter of fact. That's kind of a throwback, but got into data engineering just because I loved the technical side of things. But I think after a certain point, I realized, okay, I can't sit in a dark room and just write code. I want to tell people about these things. And so I started writing like these really shitty blog posts on like what an OLAP database was, what a, OLTP database was. And at some point somebody was like reading these blog articles at O'Reilly, and they reached out like, oh, hey, we want you to write a white paper with Databricks. We want you to write a white paper with this company called Coalesce. Again, huge like shout outs to these companies who are like, oh yeah, here's this guy who's just like writing about data stuff. We'll take a bet on him. And those opportunities kind of led to some courses. Did a course with LinkedIn on data transformation, led to some other opportunities. And again, this whole time I was a data engineer, just going to conferences and sharing my thoughts. And I think I realized, hey, I want to do this full time. Like, what is this called? And it was the same thing when I got into data analytics. I didn't even know what data analytics was. I was just like, hey, I want to do this. I want to write Python. I want to write SQL. I want to write scripts. What do you call people who do those things for their career? And so very similarly, I was like, what do you call somebody who's an engineer, but then like tells people about how things work or helps educate people or explains things? And some people called it DevRel. So, I got a job in San Jose, actually, probably 3 years ago, doing DevRel for a data engineering company. And, I was working remote through the pandemic, through all of this stuff, and I was really wanting to make a bet on in-person work. Sold everything I owned. I was living in North Carolina at the time. Everything I owned fit in my truck. Drove across the country, like camped along. It was actually a blast. Just left everything behind. Drove out to San Jose, did that whole thing. Found Replit, And then I was like, hey, I guess I'm going to teach people vibe code. Well, actually, at the time, Replit was about deployments and about writing code. And I thought, oh, wow, this would be an amazing opportunity to be able to teach people how to use like this deployment stuff, which was really painful at the time, right? If you remember a few years back, like I remember when I got into data analytics and data engineering, the thing that was hardest for me to learn was DevOps. I was like, okay, I can write Python scripts. I can write stuff that can work. At the time, I was like writing Streamlit apps. I didn't know like how to deploy it or what to do with any of these things. And so, I joined Replit with the intention of making that easy and educating on those topics. But, Sonnet came along, AI came along, and now I'm teaching vibe coding. So that's kind of been the journey, soup to nuts. But it's been really great.
Wow. It's actually an incredible journey from valuation spreadsheets to developer relations. I don't think I've ever heard anything like that.
Yeah, exactly. It's crazy. I think about 4 or 5 years ago what I was doing. It's like, like you said, valuations. I was doing debt valuation for commercial real estate companies. You can actually like value the debt that a company has. If you're like JP Morgan or Blackstone or something, or like you take out a bunch of loans to finance buying real estate. That loan exists on your balance sheet, and based on where interest rates are, that loan has some value. So like it could be worth less than the actual amount of debt. But from that, I was like living in Pennsylvania, it's like this whole thing, and now I'm like I live in SF. I get to make apps for fun and talk to you guys. So yeah, completely crazy stuff, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's super cool. And it's interesting because I've definitely seen like the evolution of Replit over the years, because I think it was about 3 years ago, I only knew Replit as like this platform that I would write like C++ and like Python on for like my school classes. And it was just this platform that we used to kind of like run and execute this code, and then that's about it. And now it's kind of reshaped into this sort of not necessarily a vibe coding, but like a vibe infrastructure type thing where it handles everything, and you can just sort of use AI to interconnect everything like that. But obviously, since you've had your sort of foundations and everything like that in data, how do you see that sort of incorporate in your day to day? Because I'm sure some of those habits probably are still there about understanding data, conceptualizing it, and working with it. Does that kind of get into your day to day a little bit?
Absolutely. I mean, in my opinion, everything is data, right? I'm biased, but if I'm building an app or if I'm teaching people about building vibe coding applications and whatnot, it's like understanding data structures is actually a huge advantage, right? And more than that, just the primitives. What is a database? Like what is a table? What is a column? How do you think about things in a data oriented way? If I'm starting to build an app, like I like fitness, I'm working on some like fitness stuff on the side. I'm breaking these ideas down into primitives and thinking about them at the table level and how they relate to one another. So I'm like, okay, well, like maybe I have a program. The program is made up of weeks and days and sets and reps, and like you can architect the data model for that application. And then the logic for the application almost just follows from the data. It's like, oh, well, once I decide on what the data model looks like, everything else just kind of falls into place, like the logic for what I'm building. And so like the data can really be foundational to any type of application. Does that mean you need to be a data analyst or data engineer to do this? No, but if you're new to building, if you're a new coder, if you're someone who's trying to learn, data can be a really great place to start, and understanding how some of these systems work can be really advantageous. So I see it a lot on the educational piece and on the like building piece. But then, writing a lot of code with AI these days and just understanding like what object oriented Python is, or having the background in like kind of data infra, data engineering, is useful every day. So hopefully that answers your question.
No,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely does. Yeah, it's interesting because especially now with AI, conversations, tool calls, everything like that. That's all just data, and then that data needs to be reformatted into the AI and everything like that. And I was watching something the other day where this company is essentially paying like real coders and real programmers to work on these fake projects that will never get shipped to have high quality production level code, and they're just selling that to essentially AI data companies and everything like that. And it's like we're not even doing it for the love of the game now. We're just doing it for the love of the data. So it's really interesting how crazy data centric the world is right now, because we're running out of data with all these AI agents and everything.
well, there's no such thing as running out of data. There's running out of high quality data. That's a different
Exactly.
thing, right? I think study last year disclosed something like hundreds of zettabytes stored worldwide. Can you imagine how big of a number it is? I'm not even sure I know how many zeros that is, but it's a lot. And yeah, there's a lot of data to deal with. But curious, going back to our questions, Matt, you mentioned that you wanted to teach people. Like, that's something that people don't know about themselves and then discover that randomly in their lives. I'm curious, at what point did you realize that you enjoy teaching people things?
That's a great question. Okay, so I'm gonna answer this first. I'm gonna say I was just thinking about like data. I have this amazing, maybe the best piece of company merch that's ever been given to me by I think it was ThoughtSpot at a Snowflake conference. They gave me a hat and it says Data Daddy on it. That's all it says. And if I'd known we were going to go down this rabbit hole, I would have brought it on this podcast. But probably best merch of all time. I blacked out the ThoughtSpot logo, so it's just a hat that says Data Daddy. And I haven't broken it out in a bit. So next SF party I go to, I might be wearing that hat. But
Excellent.
back to your point. How did I know I wanted to educate? I don't think I ever like, I don't know, maybe it's not traditional education, especially like online. It's very one way. It's like you create something, you don't necessarily know who engages with it, or maybe some months later you hear from someone, oh, this video really helped me, this blog really helped me, I really enjoyed this piece you wrote, or I read a book and I like never know really who read it or who got value from it. But I think the thing for me was I was so enamored with learning, like, oh, I built this project and it had this technology in it. Like I learned about this thing, Replit, and I had all these problems that I couldn't figure out with deploying things before. But today, I was able to deploy something really fast. Everyone should know about this. Like everyone needs to know that this is the best way to do this thing. And I get enamored with doing things efficiently, or technology just gets me so excited that it's like I feel it's like my job to go and be like, hey, you guys are doing stuff the wrong way. You could be doing it better. There's a better way of doing things. And I learned about this and I'm so excited and so passionate about it. I want to share it with you. And so I think it was through that process of like discovery, understanding and sharing, just basically like my own learning that got me really motivated and really excited to say, I want to go teach people about these things, not because inherently like I enjoy necessarily like the process of teaching, but because I think it's the most important thing and the most exciting thing that everyone knows the best way of doing things. So there are these exciting technologies that exist.
Fascinating. It's almost like it's your natural calling that you've found. I must show others what they can do with technology of today. Excellent.
Sure. And but it starts with building, right? It starts with like, what am I going to do? If I have a free morning or free afternoon, well, I'm probably like hiking or something. I'm like, I also love a lot of other things, but one of the things is like, I want to just like build cool stuff, right? I want to try and make things more efficient. I want to create something creative. I want to create something for people to engage with. And then through that process, that creative process, you like learn about all these interesting things. And it's just like this endless rabbit hole that's really fun to go down.
Yeah, and I think that's like a crucial part of like, well, I've seen with like other DevRel people, it's like they don't create content because they have to. They create it because they love it. And that's I vibe with that very, very much so, where it's like all of my little side projects and stuff like that. I make videos and talk about how that happened and stuff like that because I find it fun. I find it exciting and engaging. And like just today, for example, with Inbound, there was an outage due to like some SES configuration error. And I feel like a normal company or something like that, or a normal person would just kind of fix it and then call it good or whatnot. But I was like, I looked into it and then I kind of wrote like a video blog post about it and posted that. I'm like, here's what I learned and here's what you can learn as well. And I feel like all of us DevRel just kind of get that and we're like, I learned this and I feel like I should compact this and present this to you so that way you can learn it as well.
Yeah,
Absolutely love that.
yeah.
So, leading into that, if a data engineer asks, how do I break into DevRel without starting from like absolute zero, what would you like kind of recommend them to do? Because there's like a bunch of different ways that you could kind of do this and be like, just go grab a Lumix S5 II camera and start filming or something like that. What would kind of be your workflow be like for that?
Yeah, I would say, go buy the most expensive camera you can. Go get your Red 8K. Spend 2 years learning how to edit video. These are the things not to do. And my advice actually would be exactly the same for any profession. If you said, how do I become an AI engineer? How do I become a data analyst? How do I become a data engineer? Just start doing it. Like you don't, there is no magical path. Um, there's no like special road, especially in tech, right? Okay, maybe if you want to be a doctor, there is a very thought out path to becoming a doctor that you just kind of have to do, and that's like how the world works. We need more doctors, but in tech, you just manifest whatever you want to do, or at least that's how I look at it. Now, there are a bunch of different ways that you can approach that. Maybe you find a mentor, maybe you get involved in some communities. You start going into like a Discord group. It's like you insert yourself into a collection of people that they're already doing these things, and you kind of like through osmosis become engaged in that activity. And I think that's really important. But the most straightforward one is you just open up your laptop and you say, hey, you know what? I want to build something and I'm going to share it with people. And it's kind of a long road, right? Like it can be kind of a lonely road, but I think that part of it is finding people that love to do what you love to do. And so, I'm a huge advocate of seeking out where the people who are the best at what they do are and going there physically. That's why I live in San Francisco. I think maybe Dan came here for similar reasons. And I see that as kind of like a shortcut or a superpower of like, hey, I'm gonna go find these people. I'm gonna go engage with this thing. And then I'm also just gonna do it on my own, right? And I'm gonna ship it. And so like, my advice is always just like build something cool, open up your laptop and tell people about it. If you want to write, if you want to create video, if you want to, I don't know, go talk about it in person, face to face, that's DevRel. Through that, you meet people, you do stuff, and it just happens, right?
Yeah. And I wanted to pull up a post that you shared on Twitter about your setup, what you're using for producing content. I found that very inspiring, especially the part on the image on the top left, the quick disclaimer. Like, just go and start right now. Yes, you, with your MacBook camera and mic. I found this super, super awesome. Like, it's literally all you need to do. Just start. Just do the thing. And people
Yeah,
really always get that wrong.
Yeah, I get this question all the time, and it might be tough to see on the screen here if you're on a smaller screen, but like if you click into that image, yeah, on the top left, because people ask this question, the first thing I always tell them is this isn't even really, yeah, here you go. You can kind of see it. The disclaimer is, you shouldn't feel like you have to spend $5,000 to make great content. Start right now. Yes, you, with your MacBook camera and mic, because that's what I did. And, people are always like, oh, tell me about the boom mic that you use. Tell me about the camera that you use. But like, unless you're consistently producing and creating, that might not be the right question to ask. All that stuff comes later. And with my own content, like if you look at the videos I made a year and a half ago, they were like very bad, or even 2 years ago, it was very bad. But I recorded courses in my first DevRel job with my MacBook camera and and my AirPods, and we shipped them, and people got value from them. And look, there are a lot of people that have a lot more followers and a lot more success than I do that have a shittier setup than I do, and they're doing just fine, right? So like all of the nice stuff is just flourish. And I think, don't get me wrong, it's part of being a professional that you care about the way that your content looks and sounds and the way that you present. I think that's all very important. But the content is more important than the fidelity in some regards. And so like you can always become a better speaker, become a better presenter without the equipment. And that's kind of what I tell people.
Yeah, absolutely. Your most valuable piece of equipment is yourself and your tongue, right? Like you moving it
Dude,
and making things sound nice.
I think maybe it was I can't remember who it said, maybe Tiago Forte, somebody else online. Protect the asset, and the asset is up here. So everything that you should do is revolves around protecting the asset and making yourself a better person and like more able to produce higher quality work or accomplish whatever you want.
Yeah, that's right. Anyway, getting back to you and your developer relations journey at Replit, when you joined the company, they weren't exactly what they are today, as you mentioned. I'm really curious, what did you walk into when you joined Replit at first? What was going on?
Man, a lot of things were going on. So I mean, first thing I have to say is like big shout out to David Hong, DH. He hired me at Replit. Again, taking a bet on somebody that I'd been doing DevRel for a few years at the time. Coming from data engineering, it wasn't like, Replit was like the perfect fit. And I know there were a lot of other people that were interested in the opportunity. But I joined, and Replit, as I mentioned, was just a tool for deploying code. As Ryan mentioned, you can run C++, you can do, Python, JavaScript, Rust, .NET, whatever you want. One of the things that makes the platform amazing is that you can run a bunch of different stuff on it. But it was a place for technical people that was more simpler than using other like CLI based tools for deployment or other like more complicated DevOps tools to write code in the browser without installing anything and deploy it quickly. So when I joined, I thought, oh, cool. I'm going to teach people this like simplified process. It's all going to be about writing code and creation pre GPT 3.5. The company, what I didn't know, was kind of in the midst or on the cusp of undergoing a major reorg. So a few months after I joined, this is all kind of public information. You can read about it. There was like a very big layoff that impacted, 30 or 40% of the company. So we went from being, like 140, 130, 140 when I joined down to being under 100. I was the only person left on the marketing team after that layoff. And the summer of 2024, summer into fall, it was like a really tough time because, like you undergo a layoff, everybody's morale is pretty low. Replit has always been an amazing product and a product for builders. But like commercially, the success wasn't necessarily there. And so there's this very painful pivot that had to take place over the course of a few months. And so I think from, when I joined, which was like 130, it went all the way down to like 50 or 60. Again, that's like a really painful process. And in that summer, I was just kind of like trying to do my best. Again, we didn't really have a marketing team. I was creating content. I was pushing videos. I also became known as kind of like the video guy in some sense. So like if you look at the original agent launch video, it was just like me with my camera and a tripod recording Amjad doing the demo on his laptop, and then I like edited it. I remember there's a photo on Twitter somewhere of like me in like the quote unquote war room with the AI team, like shipping the original agent at like 2 a.m. Like I'm editing the launch video. It's absolutely ridiculous stuff. But yeah, there's this like long, painful process, and then this big bet that obviously Amjad and Michele and the company leadership made on AI and on Replit Agent that then paid off and turned us into kind of this vibe coding company, or what we were. But like the journey to that was very very challenging, right? And a lot of really great people I worked with who are no longer at the company. It's still obviously amazing people we keep in touch. A lot of people at the company that stuck that out, that kind of like fought through that really challenging time. And so yeah, that transition from Replit as everyone knew it a couple years ago to Replit Agent, Replit, the vibe coding company, was a painful one, but one that required a lot of hard work and a lot of really amazing people that I'm grateful to work with every day.
Yeah, I can definitely see the evolution of that and the evolution of quality as well, which leads me into our next question. So we had Lee Rob on here a couple weeks ago, and he said the most important indicator for like KPIs and tracking and stuff like that is quality. How well does your quality evolve over time? So what do you sort of use? Because every DevRel kind of has a different way of like their KPIs and measurements of success. How do you and your team sort of justify and like, I don't know, measure that stuff?
I think quality is a good one. It's a bit of an intangible, right? I think Lee is amazing at what he does, and I think everybody has their way of measuring these things. And again, like I said, if you look at my first videos, they were terrible. If you look at my videos now, they're better. I still see places where they can improve, and I hope in 3 years, right, I look at it and I say they're the best, right? So definitely I want quality to the quality of the content that I create, the quality of my writing has improved a lot as well. But like how do I measure that, right? The perhaps a what would you call lagging indicator of quality is engagement. That's not always true. It's imperfect metric, right? You can have content with very poor quality that gets high engagement. But if you think about it kind of like a funnel, and this is how I think about it, right? Think about the product funnel. You have, maybe some awareness. Are people aware of your product? Engagement. Are people engaging, using the product? Down the funnel, you have something like adoption. Are they like actually using it day to day? You have power users, champions, purchasers, right? Like this varies by the product. I think typically developer relations works somewhere in the middle of that funnel. Engagement, adoption, and that's where like if you read Swix's blog posts measuring DevRel, it's kind of like monthly active users. It's kind of like the gold star. How do you measure that, right? That's challenging. Maybe you put UTM parameters on your links. You use a tool like Amplitude or PostHog to say how many users are engaging with these UTM params, how many are entering the product through my means. But for many of us, we're not working for consumer products, we're working for developer tools. I'm grateful at Replit that we do have massive volume and I can move some of these numbers in a tangible way. But, for many of us, it might be a little bit different. Hey, maybe, the bigger metric that we're moving here is like enterprise leads. Is there a way that we can measure the number of users from enterprise that are engaging with our content? And to Lee Rob's point, I think in some sense these metrics follow from quality. So if I'm continuously pushing the quality, are people getting value out of the thing that I'm delivering? That's actually what these numbers are measuring. The number of active users that I'm driving are directly correlated to the value that I'm providing with the content that I create. And that's highly correlated with the quality of the content that I'm creating. And so, yeah, as I think about metrics, the goal should always be to benefit the user in everything that you do, in product, in DevRel, right? In marketing. People talk about marketing. Marketing is kind of a dirty word, but really marketing is just, hey, I didn't know about this thing and now I know that it can help me. And so like, yeah, that's actually benefiting me. Like good marketing is helping people. But I think about it all through the lens of like, how do we help the user and provide as much value as possible? And then what are some ways that we can measure that? Like it's a little superficial, but like the number of followers that you have, the number of people that engage with your content in an ideal world is a reflection of if you're doing the right thing. So, take it for what it's worth. I think it's different at every company, but typically I look at DevRel like a funnel, and then we pick some parts in the funnel, maybe typically middle to bottom, depending on the goals of your company, and then measure those things, right? How many people are engaging? Are we able to drive that? How many people are converting or becoming champions? Typically that tends a bit towards more community. Things towards the top of the funnel are a bit more advocacy/marketing, and then the middle of the funnel is developer relations or experience.
Yeah, very, very, very good take. And I don't think it's all that important to be stuck up on the numbers, because at the end of the day, the journeys that developer relations referred customers usually go through are so long, or so like exotic that it's literally
Yes.
impossible to quantify. So, yeah.
Actually, and I have another comment on that since you brought it up. I was speaking with another DevRel, and one thing he said is, hey, it's actually, especially at a startup, it's a lot about trust because there aren't super concrete metrics in a lot of cases. And so if you're bringing on a DevRel, if you're a DevRel and you're hiring, you have to be hiring for people that you trust, that even if I'm not, there's not somebody breathing down your throat with like some like quarterly metric for you to hit, you're going to go out and do the right thing. A lot of it is just like, if you're at a startup, I don't know that everybody that's watching this has worked at a startup. Things are fuzzy and things are gray and things are not, like big public company like metrics, like, just kind of Amazon. You're just like cranking through writing code, and you have to make decisions. And I have to say, what's the best for our users? What do I see? What am I going to invest my time in this week? And so, yeah, there's like a big element of trust there before you get to the metrics. And don't get me wrong, metrics are super important because a lot of times, if I can quantify something in dollars and cents, if I can say, hey, I went out and I did 30 million impressions and that corresponds to X amount of ad dollars, and like this is how we can quantify, this is how we can just put some value of what I'm doing, that can be really powerful in the right room. But so can anecdotes of somebody like, hey, that course that you made really made it easier for me to understand this concept than I signed up, or something.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Going back to your developer relations work at Replit, you are in a very, very interesting position. At least I find it very interesting, where now it's largely about vibe coding, right? If you encounter an engineer or somebody with a lot of experience in the industry, they might approach this concept, this topic, as something to dismiss. Something like, oh, vibe coding, ew. But curious, how do you define and explain what vibe coding to such skeptical users, and how do you address this kind of feedback?
Oh man, yeah, vibe coding gets a lot of shade. I think there are a lot of things to unpack here. So first, I mean, there are a lot of people that just, they don't even know what the term is. Maybe they've never used vibe coding before. Like they're still like, we're definitely living a bubble in SF. This is something new that's being adopted. And the skepticism is warranted, right? With any new technology, I think there are a group of skeptics and there are a group of early adopters. And so all I'll say is that in my own experience as a dev, there's a spectrum, right? There's like people that vibe code like I've never written code before. And there are devs that are super surgical and tactical and use this tool to just get more stuff done. The reason I believe in vibe coding and the reason I work at Replit is because a year ago when Sonic first came out, I realized, holy cow, I can just get more stuff done. And for me, you know, it's I appreciate the art of writing code. That's important. But for me, it's like about what I can build and the stuff that I can get done and the people that I can help. And so once I realized I can help more people and I can get more stuff done, that really convinced me immediately I should be using this more. And again, if you understand how to, or well, not again, if you understand how to use context and you understand how to use LLMs as a tool to accomplish goals, there are really amazing things that you can do. So if you're a dev and you've been saying, hey, like I don't need any of this vibe coding nonsense, I'm a hardcore, DevOps guy or whatever, give it a shot. Try and find the right tools. Spend 30 minutes or an hour playing around with it for sure. I think you'll find it useful if you use it in the right way. If you're somebody who's saying, I can't stand all these vibe coders out here that have never written code building apps, I get it. At Replit, our goal is to empower everyone to create software, regardless of what background you come from. But I view things a little bit differently, right? I think if you think about vibe coding as a creative tool, I think it's very interesting. Creative tool, a tool for or productive tool, a tool for entrepreneurs, a tool for professionals, a tool for people who are inspired with an idea that just want to create what they always have. The same way that you think about maybe a MacBook as a powerful tool, or you think about some of these classical, even like Nike, right? Nike in 1970, there is no finish line, right? Like these, you buy the shoes to accomplish amazing things, right? I think about Replit as somewhere you can go to build amazing things, right? And vibe coding, right? Like I think people want to talk about it as like, oh, you go and it just magically, just like apps just appear. Like you don't have to do anything. It's actually just engineering. I don't, this is maybe a hot take. I can't go to people and just say, I'm going to teach you how to be an engineer. But good vibe coders are good engineers. Like I'm going to think logically. They're good builders. Like if you can fix a motorcycle, if you can fix a car engine, you're going to be an amazing vibe coder. If you know how to use an Excel spreadsheet, you're going to be an amazing vibe coder, because under the hood, it's just logic. It's just software engineering. It's software engineering without software engineering, right? And it's first principles thinking, it's systems thinking, it's breaking down problems, it's product sense. If you open up your phone and you use an app and you're like, this app sucks because XYZ, 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 and these are the things I want to change, you're going to be an outstanding vibe coder because it's being super conscientious and pedantic and having an attention to detail. And these are characteristics of a software engineer, but there's the code is English, right? And so the more I explore these ideas, the more I try to communicate to engineers. Don't necessarily think about it as just like people, I don't know, like frolicking and just like willy-nilly creating apps, but think about it as a tool for accomplishing goals. The goal is to create something amazing. And more with AI, we can do that with natural language. It's kind of how I approach it.
Yeah, no,
Very
I think
cool.
that makes sense because I gave a talk about this at Next.js Conf, where it's like AI shouldn't replace you as the developer, but you should be the developer delegating to it like in insane detail. And that's why I am a huge supporter of voice mode, whether that be via like Super Whisper or something like that, because I'm amazing at like visualizing out like the flow chart of how the app works and how the stuff works. So I will literally, my girlfriend will come in and be like, what the hell are you doing? Because she'll see me and I'm literally like this, just like dictating like at the speed of light to like the agent. And I submit paragraphs at a time, but it does it like insanely well because it's just, I reference all the little context bits and everything like that. So it can actually understand what's happening. So I think that pairing of yourself as a developer with the agent as the tool can just push you even further and just make it work seamlessly. So,
That's spot on, right?
yeah.
And commonly that's how I'm using Replit. I'm doing the same thing with voice, and I'm like looking at this thing. I'm like locked in. I'm like, change this button, make this thing work different. I want to implement this other thing, right? But the thing I want to, the point I think that's important to make is that even if you've never used code before, even if you don't know what code is, the latency to information is like zero now, right? Like you have your coding agent open, and you're like, what's a shader? I don't know what a shader is. Explain to me what a shader is and explain to me how it works in my application. And you can just literally double click on every piece of information and learn so fast. So the latency to information is lower. We talk about, we're developers. We talk about developer experience. What is developer experience? Well, it's like feedback loops, cognitive load, and flow state, right? And so all of these things, we can lower the feedback loop to information, but then also implementing the features. We can lower the cognitive load of having to switch to multiple tools by just asking our chat interface. And ultimately, that gets us in a flow state as a builder, whether you're someone new to code or you're a software engineer, that lets you just do more stuff and build amazing things. And Ryan, I think like what you're mentioning there is you can use voice, you can use Super Whisper, Whisper Flow, shout out to Nay, to turn these things, you want to mind meld with the computer, right? You just want to be in this like freaking loop. It's super fun. But yeah, man, I think that's spot on for what like vibe coding really is.
You get like in this flow state, and I was in this today when I was just debugging one of the incidents that I had, and it just feels like, especially if you use like a fast model like Composer or something like that, it just feels like you're in this flow state where you're just input output, and you're generating really good code because it's all super detail oriented and everything like that. And it's just, once you experience it, you're like, oh man, I love that feeling. It kind of gives me the rush of like coding itself, but I'm just able to work 10 times faster. And it's just, it's a crazy experience.
Here's I like to flip this. I like to ask the interviewers questions sometimes. How do you guys like make sure that you're writing code? Because I was like, I had to like write some Python the other day, and I was like, oh, it's like, dude, I'm a little rusty. You know what I'm saying?
See, that's the thing with me. I don't really write code. I know the syntax because I ingest it enough. So if I've got to like edit something, I can do it really well with like cursor tab. But if you were to plot me down in the old Replit editor, like, I don't know, 3 years ago, and it's like, hey, create a React app. TypeScript I can kind of do okay in, but create like a React app or something like that, dude, I would be cooked. Especially with all this like React query stuff and all the query and the hooks, I would be absolutely just gone.
Dan, you got any tips?
Yeah. I actually do not trust models enough to just ship code the way I want it to be shipped. There are just things that I didn't manage to capture because there's like so many preferences that I've built over my career. I've been coding for over a decade now, and I just don't trust the agent outputs to always deliver on what I want. And I occasionally, like not occasionally, on every prompt that I use in Cursor being my preference ID, I always have to manually insert some code. Either add some error handling the way I want it, or fix how the logging is done, or remove the ridiculous, super elaborate comments. There's always something I have to change manually. But yeah, I am, as the time is moving, I'm trusting the cursor agent generations more and more. That's like a very consistent trend. Like as the models improve, I trust these models more and more.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe this is an irrational fear of mine that I'm going to be like walking through a bad part of San Francisco. Shout out Daniel Lurie. He's cleaning things up, but you're in a bad part of San Francisco, and some guy jumps out and he's like, "You need to write some object-oriented Python, or it's over, dude. Like, you better do it." And if that happened today, like, I don't know what would happen, but I think there's something to it, right? Where like it's like, it depends on the type of repo you're in. If you're in like an established repo with like patterns, you can use that as context to get the AI to write code the way you want it to. If you're doing a greenfield project, it's gonna do its own thing, which is okay. Maybe like the thing I tell for like developers that like people think now, oh, Replit's only for vibe coders, but if you're a dev and you want to prototype something really quick, it's actually a great way to just spin up a full stack app, and then you can just like rebuild it the way you want to after you validate that it works. We use like a pretty opinionated architecture, but it's still AI written code, and so it might not do things the way you want it to. But then if you're going from scratch and you're starting, maybe you bootstrap it with like coding standards, and you're still going to get like weird comments. And dude, I did this the other day. I like built something out with Python, and I was like reading every line, and I was like, what the heck is this code? It's the craziest stuff. It's like, why are you doing string comprehension that way? It's like crazy stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting because if I was able to visualize like a graph of my AI usage over like a new project, it definitely goes like this while I'm like still establishing the patterns. And then once I've established like my API patterns, I set up my cursor rules, I've set up like my type safety and how I want that stuff to be. I've set up like this lint and build cycle. So that way, if it makes after like a plan session, it runs a lint and then it runs a build. And then after that, and after everything's kind of finalized, then I just kind of, it is just absolute flow state. Like I'm very, very happy the current state of the inbound repositories in. I've got so many cursor rules and everything like that. Literally, I've got a workflow that comes in. So if someone reports, like there's a little feedback card inside the app. If someone types in a feedback thing and reports some technical issue and an AI flags it as technical, I throw it over to a Timbo background agent, and it has no like special prompt or anything like that. It just literally with some like setup, it throws in the user's issue and it normally fixes it. Like I'd say maybe 9 out of 10 times. And it just throws me a PR that I'm able to review and everything's kind of like auto done. And I feel like that's going to be like the next evolution of the web, where it's like everybody just has more automation and automative capabilities to be able to work on anything. So it's like a DevRel now becomes sort of like a product manager in a sense, because he can kind of overreach, and then like a designer can actually reach into some of the code. So yeah, it's really interesting. But yeah,
I think sorry. The cool thing about vibe coding is you can classify it as many things. It can be an engineering manager instructing a team of agents being self-engineers. Somebody doesn't perform, just fire them, right? Or a product manager specifying the product writing product specifications and passing it along to an engineering team, right? There are so many ways to do it, and there's no right way, honestly. Like it depends on your flow, right?
I mean, I think everybody wants to make things black and white, and it's just like it's not. There's nuance, as it would turn out. It's not like Twitter, like where people just post hot takes. But I really like what Ryan said. My most successful like vibe coding projects repos, I think I'm most proud of the Replit documentation, which I've written a blog post on, like kind of how we did that. Was I just wrote a ton of docs for the docs, like all the rules, all the examples, all of the templates, all of the bash commands and pnpm scripts that an agent could use. I just built all the infra for the agent to do to check its own work and to like have context. And then when you do that, you unlock background agents, you unlock like vibe coding tools, and then you can set up these workflows where the scaffolding is automated, right? And it sounds that's what Ryan's doing, but hopefully nobody like prompt injects the issue submission box from
yeah.
Well, that's another fun thing that's kind of come about. It's AI has gotten really good at, when you stack it in layers, to notice that there, like one of those layers, it is like an issue. Like for example, for that feedback loop, if you're interested, when that feedback loop comes in, there's an agent that essentially does the evaluation, but then there's 2 levels of agent above it that essentially say, hey, this might be a prompt injection attack. Can you evaluate it? And then the agent above that checks, it basically vibe checks. And I think it's like Sonnet 4, GPT-5, and then I think like Gemini or something like that at the top level. So there's like overlap with that as well. So,
nice.
Yeah,
incredible.
It's super interesting, because that's now an attack vector. It's essentially XSS in the AI form. So yeah.
I mean, and it's more like if you don't realize like what an MCP server does, and you like plug in some, something with sensitive permissions that has access to data, some of those MCP attacks are pretty crazy.
Oh yeah, I was just about to bring it in. Like there are some really, really scary attacks you can do with MCP servers nowadays.
What was it? There was the one that was published where like somebody like prompt injected a linear ticket, or it was like some Jira ticket or something that like it was something crazy.
Yeah, I think those types of attacks are now categorized as context poisoning. Might be wrong. Anyway, but yeah, actually, you might want to stay in touch with Ryan, Matt, because Ryan, if anybody in the world, is probably a very good authority on vibe coding. This person, like when the composer model came out by Cursor, like in a day, this person generated 2 billion tokens. I was like, how is this even possible? How can you do that? Yeah.
Have they has OpenAI sent you an award yet, Ryan? For
I don't use OpenAI enough for that. I've got a Cursor tab key.
There you go.
But other than that, I do not have an open. Oh wait, hold on. Do I have it here? I don't think I do. I have a custom, thanks to my 3D printing company, I have a custom Cursor 3 Comma Club award that I don't think I have over here. But it's like a little plaque that basically just shows like 3 Comma Club. I don't know where that is.
Interesting.
Oh well.
But yeah, back to vibe coding. You taught vibe coding to a bunch of people for a while now, right? And as we just have seen, you have a few opinions on like how it should be taught and what are the implications of getting into it. Curious, in your experience so far, teaching developers from various backgrounds, what are the 3 skills people think they need versus 3 that they actually need to interact with this new tooling well? Because I imagine people really come in with a lot of misconceptions when they get started.
3 skills people think they need versus what they actually need.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the one I see most often is like people think that there's like a magic incantation or prompt. So it's like anybody that doesn't understand, maybe hasn't spent the time to like deeply understand how something works, thinks that there's like some shortcut to it. So it's like, oh, what do I prompt Claude to then paste into Replit? And I'm like, that's not how you approach solving problems, right? So that maybe that's one expectation. The second expectation is I just have a box and I'm going to type in like whatever I think, and then it's going to just magically appear. Maybe that's similar to the first one, but also not how it works, right? Like you have to, can this tool do what I want it to do? That's really the first question that you should be asking. And the follow-up question to that is, what do I want to do? And if you're deeply asking yourself, what am I trying to build? Well, you can go kind of up the ladder there to say, well, then what are the components that go into this thing? Now I get it. Not everybody thinks that way. That's like a very first principles, like, it's just how I think. Maybe designers approach the problem differently. Hey, I want to create a beautiful experience for people and then turn that into something real. Understood, but at some point you have to be asking like deeper questions rather than just like kind of shooting in the dark, right? So maybe 3 things. First, it's kind of like, I need to know like the incantation or like the secret process to how I do things. Second, it's like, there's some magical tool that will solve my problem, and I just type in a prompt box that creates my idea, and I don't have to do any work. 3, how do I make $1 million vibe coding? Okay, like I just like that's like the catchy, make me $1 billion, no mistakes. Okay, I get it. It's now we're selling courses and it's app mafia stuff, whatever. I don't think any of that is super important. Let's talk about like what I do think is important. The ability to think logically and break down problems. Number 1, right? Okay, I have this thing that I want to build. Why? Why am I building it? What does it do? It's in some senses, it's just kind of like product thinking, right? Like, can I break this thing down into little building blocks? And as an engineer, you might call it an architecture diagram. You might call it thinking about the services that go in your application. But if you're if you're not an engineer, if you're someone new to vibe coding, you might say, oh well, I want to generate images. How do I generate images for my users? Well, you could ask AI and do research to understand what that looks like. And you probably learn that there's a service like maybe Google Nano Banana is what you want to use. And then you might ask, well, how do I put that in an app? As it would turn out on Replit, soon that you won't really need to ask that question, but you might learn that there's a thing called an API key that you get, and you have to use a certain type of prompt to get an app to use that thing. So first, I would say, like the ability to break down problems and first principles thinking. Second, this is actually one I've been thinking about a lot lately. Debugging. Like, debugging is a skill that everyone should just learn for their life, period. Like if you just want to do stuff, learn debugging. So one of our engineers at Replit, Ryan, shout out Ryan, dude is like a legendary Nix contributor. Like if you just like look up a Nix problem, if you just go into Google and you're like, oh, hey, I have this problem with the Nix packager, there will be like a forum link. Like you'll find some Nix OS forum link and Ryan will be in there like answering that question. Actually insane. He was like, oh, hey, everyone, I'm going to do a tech talk on this book called Debugging. And I'm only like, I haven't read the entire book. I'm working my way through it. But what I realized is everyone should just know how to debug to solve problems. It's like, hey, if I want to go, I mentioned, earlier in the talk, if I want to fix something on my truck, if I want to fix something in my car, if I want to fix a piece of electronics or a lamp, I have to understand the problem, understand the domain that I'm working in, like the scope of the thing. Why isn't this light turning on? Well, is it plugged in? Well, does the light bulb work? well, if it's plugged in and the light bulb works, there's something wrong between the socket and the light bulb. And so now I can start drilling down into that problem. And if you understand debugging principles, which are like, oh, I have an app and it's broken. Well, my app has a front end, the things I see, and it has a back end, the things I don't see. How can I understand what's going on in those things to figure out what the root cause of the issue is? This is a skill that I don't see a lot of non-technical people have. Even some engineers could be better at this. I could be better at it, right? And sometimes I forget when I have a problem. Oh, hey, like maybe my camera's not working. What if I join the screen, my camera wasn't working? Sometimes I'll just be like, I'll just turn it off and on again. I'm going to be lazy. No, sit down, read the docs, read the instruction manual, understand what you're working with, and then try to solve the problem. And that's debugging. I think everybody should just learn how to do that. So yeah, I'll take a pause there because this is all line up.
No, that was good. That was good. I just wish we had more time to let you to keep talking about this.
Yeah. It's actually interesting. Debugging as a critical skill to have. I super resonate with that. I don't know. I mean, you already know this, but rubber duck debugging, there's a reason why I preach this to every single person I meet. It's an incredible skill to have. It's essentially, I don't know if you're familiar with the concept of Socratic dialogue, but that's what it is. You're engaging yourself in the conversation that helps you identify the problem and solve it during the dialogue, right? And rubber duck being, an inanimate object that you're talking to just helps your mind facilitate this process. That's all. But yeah, actually, I recommend this to everybody to try engaging with your LLMs in a Socratic dialogue and see if that improves your process of learning or solving problems. It's pretty incredible stuff.
I wrote that down. I'm gonna think through that one a little bit more deeply. Do we have time for me to give one more thing?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Because I was like kind of trying to assemble my thoughts to remember. I think the biggest thing I see from people is a fear of failure. And this is for people that are getting into engineering. These are people who are coming to vibe coding. We're used to products where, like you open up Duolingo and you press the button and you learn Spanish. It works. Maybe you fail in that process, but the app works. And then they come into building and the app doesn't work. Like you try to build something, it just breaks. This is like when I was learning to be an engineer, I was like trying to write a hello world program or like install Postgres on my laptop in, I don't know, 2018 or something. And it took me like a day to figure out. And like, that's demoralizing. You want to feel like a loser. You sit down to open up the textbook and you're on page 1 at the end of the day. It's like, okay, this is great. Mm-hmm. So like what I think most people don't understand is that like to do anything interesting, you just have to repeatedly fail over and over and over again. And like vibe coding tools are getting so good. In some ways, you can circumvent a lot of that failure. And a lot of our successes as a society are built on the failure of other people, right? Like I hope no one ever has to open a textbook to learn Python again the way that I did. You should chat with an LLM if you want to learn Python. Maybe one day you don't need to. I don't know. But the being an excellent engineer, being a professional means just failing repeatedly over and over and over again. And so in some sense, like I want to help people vibe code and build amazing things. I want that to be as easy as possible, but you will bump into a place where you fail and you're stuck and you don't know what to do. And the number one skill is going to be like persevering and finding the internal motivation to say, I'm an engineer, I'm trying to build this thing and I want to be a staff engineer. Maybe that's you. I want to be a manager. I want to lead a team. I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to start a business. I want to, help my family. I want to like be the type of person that I've always wanted to be. I'm just going to fail over and over and over again. And I'm not going to let that stop me.
Yeah, it's actually an excellent. Yeah, sorry. It's an excellent piece of advice that actually extends well beyond engineering also, right? Like in general, tolerance to failure is something that will get you very, very far if you keep increasing it. And that's how you grow. You fail. You just keep failing continuously until you become the best at the thing, right?
Fully agreed. And I mean, it's public speaking. It's coming on podcasts like this. I've done podcasts. I look like the biggest idiot in the world. I mean, I probably still do. You know what? We got a couple hundred people watching. It is what it is. So, I think part of it is having a healthy disregard for what other people think of you and your mistakes. And again, like you ship something that has a mistake in it, it's very easy to get self-conscious about that. As a DevRel, right? We talked about getting into DevRel. Oh, I'm going to put myself on camera and I'm going to get in front of the internet, everybody, my family, like all these people. what if I do something dumb? What if people think I'm a loser? What if like people don't like my work? It's okay. I promise no one cares. I promise no one cares at all. But eventually through that persistence, you get good at what you do. And it's just, that's part of it, right?
Yeah.
Cool. So we are almost at the top of the hour. So we're going to start working on our wrap up. Where should folks follow your work and start building and learn how to vibe code with Replit and everything like that? This is your 1 to 2 minutes of self plug and Replit plug.
Outstanding. Yeah, you can follow along with me on X. I'm on LinkedIn. I have a YouTube channel. I also do a lot of content for Replit socials. But on X it's Matty P. Recent handle acquisition. On LinkedIn it's my name. Same thing on YouTube. Or you can just go at Replit on X, LinkedIn, YouTube. And that's where I create content. Through there I try to share everything that I build. I try to really build in public. And we're doing it live now, but I'm hoping in the next couple of weeks we'll have some first-party Replit materials to learn everything you need to know from what AI is to what vibe coding is. So that's kind of coming soon, and you'll be able to find that on all the channels I mentioned earlier.
Awesome. And we're going to close out with the usual classic NextDev question. If you could go 10 years into the past and talk to yourself, what would be one piece of advice you would share?
If I could go 10 years into the past and talk to myself. All right. So we have to frame this as what year is it? It's 2025. What was I doing in 2015?
Yeah.
I'm going to date myself here. In 2015, I was a freshman in college.
Uh-huh.
And I was just a total idiot. And, I was doing things that a freshman in college very much did. At the time, I was playing baseball in school. I was studying physics, economics. I went to a liberal arts school. So I was just doing everything. I think I would have pushed myself to practice a lot of the things that I just kind of preached to you all, which is not be afraid of failing and to think more critically about what I want to do and less about what other people want me to do. And I think as a freshman in college, I was very immature in that way, that I cared a lot about what other people thought of me. And it wasn't until later in my life that I started acting in a way that aligned more with what I cared and what I wanted. And so when you see all of these things, if you follow me on Twitter, you'll see I post a lot about fitness, post a lot about Replit, I post a lot about doing things outside and the things that I care about and the things that I think. These are genuinely, uniquely who I am. And the work that I do is a byproduct of who I am as a person. And I wish I would have went back and I told my self in 2015, that is a lot more important than what other people think of you. What's that? There's that quote. Is it Tolstov? You're forsaken yourself for nothing or whatever.
Oh yeah, Tolstoy. That's right.
Tolstoy. What is the actual quote? Tolstoy. You have forsaken. I don't know. We're not going to find it.
Your worst sin is that you've destroyed and betrayed yourself for nothing.
100%, man. That's what I would have went back and just said that.
Excellent. That's excellent advice. And yeah, TLDR, don't let anybody tell you who you are. Do what you think is right for yourself, right? Only you know who you are and what you care about. Awesome.
Yeah.
I think that's a good place to wrap up. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you so much, Matt, for joining us. I think that was an excellent episode, and we've got a lot of useful advice out there for folk. But yeah, and thank you, everybody in the audience, for joining. Keep an eye out. We'll be doing a lot more of those NextDev live streams moving forward. So yeah, thanks, everybody, for tuning in.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you, Matt. And we will catch you all later. We will see you later. See ya.
Peace.